Hello everybody. So this is going to be your video for the introduction to Substance Painter. So this video is sort of going to be both for the visual effects students and also the graphics students. So if either of you hear me reference anything that doesn't make sense to you, it's probably because it's for the other type of student. So this video we're going to be quickly going over the layout of Substance Painter. We're going to be going over what the different types of layers do. And then we'll have a subsequent video that goes into a bit more of the advanced stuff that will more so apply to the visual effects students. So let's jump on in. So when you open Substance Painter, this is what you'll be greeted by. You'll have the home screen, which will ask you what you want to do, bunch of documentation, tutorials. You can look at all of that in your own time. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to close that window for now, and we're going to have a quick look at the layout. So over here on the far left hand side we have our toolbar, so very similar to what you'd find in things like Photoshop, Illustrator. You've got a paintbrush, you've got an eraser, you've got a pen tool, and then we've got a few other very sort of texturing specific tools, but it's very sparse. There aren't that many different tools we're going to use from the toolbar. We'd more so do that with different types of brushes, different effects, things along that line. Next up we have the assets menu. So your assets menu may actually look like this. If you want it to have all the icons at the top, you can just come to the midpoint and just expand upon it until you see all those icons. Depending on your screen size, it's just going to automatically pick something. You might have to do the bit of editing afterwards. So within the assets menu we can find all sorts of different materials. So if we have a look, you might not have all of these. I've downloaded some extras. So I've got a stylized wood, I've got a stylized stone, I've got a lot of stylized stuff. I've got lemon skin for some reason. We've got loads and loads of different things, but we've also got these different categories at the top. So by default, you'll be looking at the materials. Materials are basically one type of material. It is whatever the material is, that's what it is. So it could be leather, it could be metal, it could be cork or concrete, but it wouldn't have extra things added to it. It wouldn't have customizable dirt or customizable rust. That is where we would find our smart materials instead in a separate menu. Now, smart materials, you can always tell if it's a smart material because it's set to a different type of preview. It's got all these convex and concave bits to it. Please ignore those WhatsApp sounds. It's got all those different bits to it to try and show you what the smart aspect of that material is doing. So this could be, it adds a bit of dirt, it adds a bit of rust, it adds some wear and tear. There's even some really advanced ones like this hull damage where it adds glowing fire effects to things. So they are our more advanced smart materials, and we'll go over how to use those for the VFX students in the next session. We've then got smart masks, so we'll go over those as well. We have some different filters, we've got different brush types. There are loads and loads and loads of different types of brushes automatically built into Substance Painter for you, and you can find lots of other ones as well. So we've got everything from being able to paint a zipper onto something and welding marks as well, which can look quite cool to jazz up whatever you're making, to just the more traditional types of brushes that you'd find in things like Photoshop and Illustrator. We've then got a bunch of other bits that we won't concern ourselves with just yet. That's for more advanced workflows. So let's first get our cardboard boxes open, and then we can have a look at how to get some materials onto it. To launch in our cardboard box, we are going to come up to the top and go to File. Then we're going to go to New Project, and we should get the New Project window appear. There's only a couple of options we really need to change for this, but the first thing we're going to do is go from 3D Mesh and click on Select, and then we're going to find that cardboard box and hit Open. Next, the project template, we're just going to make sure that it is set to PBR Metallic Roughness. Now mine is on Alpha Test. There are lots of different PBR Metallic Roughness presets. It's up to you which one you choose. I like to either leave it on Alpha Test or Alpha Blend. It doesn't matter which one. It can just lead to some different more technical aspects down the road. I'm going to set the document resolution to 2048 by 2048, so that's 2K resolution. This can always be changed when we are in our project on the fly, so don't worry too much about that. And then in the advanced options, I just want to make sure that I do not have auto unwrap ticked. This should be unticked because we've already done our UV unwrap in Blender. If you haven't done that, you're going to have to go and look up some videos on how to do it, because the auto unwrap in Substance Painter isn't very good. Okay, so just try and avoid it where possible. So once all those settings are in and we've got our cardboard box selected, we can just hit create. The next thing we'll see is our 3D model will load up on the left hand side. So I've given mine some sort of changes in how it looks on the top and how the folds come in. And then we've got our 2D view, that UV layout for the VFX students. That we have on the right hand side, so we can paint directly onto the 2D or we can paint directly onto the 3D. So now that we can see these views and we can also see the layers menu, we'll look over a little bit more of the UI just very quickly and then we'll get into painting. So at the top, when you have one of your tools selected, once everything's imported, we have a bunch of different tool options which you'll be used to from Photoshop. And if you right click within the 3D or 2D view as well, you can find all those options and even more as well. So the alpha is the type of brush we're using or the shape of it. And then we've got lots of different options for what sort of material options we want down at the bottom. And we can also change size, spacing, flow, orientation, the angle, and we can add some randomness to those as well with jitter, but we won't be looking at that just today. So the next thing we can see now is our layers menu. So by default it will add a paint layer for you. So there are a few different types of layers within Substance Painter, and then we can edit those layers in lots of different and interesting ways. So on this paint layer, all we can really do is paint whatever we want onto it. And as I paint on the 3D or on the 2D option, you can see that it will appear onto the other side. So we can always use whichever one we prefer for doing different bits, and sometimes it can be more helpful. The navigation options in the 3D view, if you hold Alt on the keyboard and then middle mouse button, which is clicking in your scroll wheel, that will pan. If you hold Alt and click and drag, that will rotate. Alt and right click zooms, or for zoom you can also just scroll up and down, which is, I find, easier. They're very similar in the 2D view, so scroll to zoom in and out, Alt and middle mouse to pan, and if you Alt and left click, it will rotate the view. So if I wanted this to be sort of a more straight view for something I'm doing with my pen tablet, I can always have that there, and it makes life nice and easy. I don't know why I'm doing dollar signs today. Clearly money is on the mind. Okay, now with these layers, we've just seen the paint layer. So the paint layer will let you paint whatever you want on there. If we wanted to change the options of our paint layer, we could come down to our properties panel just underneath the layers, just here. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, because you're just going past all of those different paintbrush options, we can see under material, we currently only have the color selected, and on base color, we have a white color. So if I now change that to, let's say, blue, and then close that off, you can see it hasn't changed any of the brush strokes that we've already performed, but any new ones will take on that color. So we can paint back on with whatever that new color is. Now, we'll talk about the other material options in the future. That's not too important for today. One of the other types of layers we can have is a fill layer. So a fill layer on this little bucket at the top is exactly what you expect. It will fill the entire object, or that part of the object, with the color that you have desired and you have picked. Again, down here in those property options. So we get less options for a fill because we're not thinking about the brush options. But if we come down to the bottom and look at those materials, we've got base color, and we can turn this into sort of like a nice sky blue, something that would be nice for some packaging as a background. Now, because we're on the fill layer, this will make this a little bit easier to get the majority of stuff in. But say I only wanted the 4 sides around the middle to have that fill color, we can start to use some masks. So masking is one of the key ways that you will add in and take away things in Substance Painter. A lot of the time we're in Photoshop, you might think about just painting and trying to get the effect you want. In Substance Painter, we will add the desired material with the effect already there, and then we'll mask it in or out, either using paintbrushes to specifically do it, or we can select the polygons where we want it to be and not be. So for this fill layer, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to add a black mask, because I don't want it to be on everything, I just want it to be on a few specific things. So if I add a black mask, we'll see it disappear. And now, on the toolbar on the left-hand side, I'm going to go and find this Polygon Fill tool. So this is going to allow us to click on the specific aspect of the model we want to fill in either the entire polygon, or we can fill in the entire mesh, or even just a triangle or a UV, whatever it is. We're going to leave it at default for now. So with a mask, obviously, if we have black on a mask, it's removing it, it's not showing, and if we have white, then it is showing, and it's going to add it back in. So with our fill mode set to white on the right hand side, I'm just going to click on the 4 polygons around the side, and I think I am fairly happy with those. Awesome. So now that we've got those in, we can start to think about adding some extra details. So I'm going to add a paint layer in, and now I'm going to change the color to be something different. So I am going to change this, let's say, to be a red color. And then I'm going to say this is the front of my box. I'm going to right click to go into my paintbrush options and change the size down a little bit. And now I'm going to write with my mouse, so it will look terrible, bear in mind. I'm going to write Canon, and I'm going to underline it, just because I can. So, now that we've got that, hey presto, we're looking good. We might want to add a few more paint layers, we might want to add some more fill layers. So if I wanted to fill the top with a slightly different color, what I could do is add another fill layer, right click on it, add in a black mask, and then I can use that polygon fill tool again to click on my top polygons. Now, current issue is I can't tell whether it's adding, because it's currently the same color as the base color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure in my layers menu I am clicked onto the actual material and not the mask, and that will bring back the properties of this fill layer. So we can click on base color again. I'm just going to make this something like a very, very dark blue for now, and we can see it's added there. So the next thing to do is just to make sure we're selected on our mask again for that layer, and we can go in and add it to these individual areas again. Oops, rotated in the wrong place. There we go. So now we can keep building this up in whatever way we want. We can keep adding fill layers, we can keep adding paint layers, but they will only get us so far. We might want to use a certain type of material that's already been made for us. So I am going to, in my asset library on the left, search for gold. So all I have in here is some stylized gold coins from an old project. So to make sure I can search through everything, I'm just going to click on this materials filter again, and it will turn it off and it will search for gold through everything. So now I pick what I want. So I've got a gold damaged and a gold armor material. I'm going to use this gold armor and almost paint it on like gold leaf. So I'm going to click and drag it out and drop it onto my object. So now the whole thing has gone gold, it's got all this bumpy material, and we can start to work with that. So in the same way that we did for the fill layers, I'm going to right click on my gold armor layer, and I'm going to add in a black mask. So it's disappeared again. This time, I don't want to use the polygon fill tool, which we currently have selected. I want to be able to paint this gold on. So I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool again. And now, instead of painting it directly onto the mask, we're going to do this in a slightly less destructive way. So underneath the mask, we are going to click on our add effect. So mask selected, so it's highlighted in blue. Click on add effect and then go to add paint. So this is going to add its own paint layer that only exists within the mask. So if I click on the main layer, you can see it's disappeared. Click on the mask and click on the paint layer. We can now paint that gold back in. And if I ever decide, well, actually, I want it to be something completely different, I can hide that layer and bring it back whenever I want. Or I can change the opacity of that layer down, and I can even change the blending mode to something else as well. I don't know what's going to work well with that off the top of my head because I'd not planned for that. So now we can paint in with this sort of gold leaf effect. So we can change whatever we want in our brush. Let's go there. And I'm going to add in some jitter just to show you what it does. So I'm going to add a bit of size jitter, and you can see the preview at the top. I'm going to add a bit of flow jitter as well, so it's sometimes more or less opaque. I'm going to add a tiny bit of position jitter as well. And now we can see we get a bit more of a randomized brush approach. You might be able to find a use for this, you might not, it's totally up to you. So that is how you add in materials, it's how you add paint layers and fill layers, and how you can add to those masks as well and start to build them up. So the next video will be more centered for the VFX students. It's where we'll start to go over more sort of like different effects for the types of materials that you're going for, and that will be more a VFX centric workflow. For graphic students, you should be able to get some decent results out of this. So if we just were going through and painting on each individual thing for your packaging, we can edit up the brushes as well. And then you should be able to get some cool packaging for your B2 project if you so wish. So this hopefully will be your starting point. This is about 90% of the process of texturing things in Substance Painter. It's using fill layers, using paint layers, and using masks, along with the materials that we have available in the assets menu, to then just carry out what it is you want to create. So you'll be going over this in a session with myself or Matt for the graphic students. VFX students, first and second years, we've already done this, and all of you are pretty good in Substance Painter already. So this is just there as a backup for in case you forget anything. Now, like I said, next few videos are going to be mostly VFX centric, but graphic students, you could also learn something from them if you wanted to take this further. It's totally up to you. Now, hopefully this has been helpful. If you are struggling with anything, please do message me on Teams, send me an email, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible with some answers, or I'll pop into one of your sessions and give you a hand with it there. That should be everything though. Happy texturing in Substance Painter, and I will see you all around the college.